Hello and welcome to the 3,500 Miles Between Us podcast with your hosts Jobie and Abigail.
All right, welcome to another 3,500 Miles Between Us podcast.
And now we actually are 3,500 miles apart because you're back from Mexico.
I'm back from Mexico. A little jet lagged, a little tanned. Trying not to get overwhelmed with everything.
Re-entry.
Everything normal. Everything life that's real life.
Yeah.
Work and farm. Yeah. I haven't gone out on the farm yet because I know as soon as I get out there, I'll get captured into it. I'm like, I got to focus on work.
So overall, good experience down there.
Yeah, is that what we're talking about this time?
Oh, well, there's a couple of things. I can't remember what we said we were going to possibly discuss.
Well, I think it was the Adolescence movie, which I watched on the plane.
Do you know what's funny is that I was gardening this morning and I was thinking about what's happened since you've been gone. And literally, it was tomorrow will be 2 weeks since that series dropped. So it was Thursday 2 weeks ago. And I mean, by the time this posts, it's at saturation point. Literally every other reel on Instagram is something to do with adolescence. Like it's just gone. They're calling it a behemoth. It's had 24 million views.
Isn't that crazy?
Broken records in England. It's the most watched series of all time.
I heard the Prime Minister's talking about it.
Yeah, it's massive.
Is it I heard that kid is that's the first time he's acted.
Owen Cooper, and all over Instagram is his auditions and them talking about what an extraordinary actor he is, and his auditions aren't far off of the actual end product. Like, he was a natural from the moment he got in there, and people are just like blown away by him, blown away by Stephen Graham, the guy who was the dad, the producer. I think he was the director. He was just kind of everything.
Like the Stephen Graham, the last time I saw him was in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, I saw him pop up. I watched Snatch the other day and he was there. And I was like, oh, that's an old face. But unknown to me, he's in a lot of stuff. He's worked with Leonardo DiCaprio. He's worked with Robert De Niro in The Irishman. When you look now that they're kind of really bringing him out of the closet and going, this is his portfolio, he's actually done really, really well. Yeah. I guess with not major parts, but significant roles that are quite high profile.
Wow. So is most of the reels that you see on Instagram and stuff, is it, are they just saying this is a great show, or like, holy shit, we need to be careful? Or...
Yeah, I mean, there's discussion from psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists saying this needs to be talked about more. There's them talking about the method of acting and filming. There's the cast talking about praising each other and, you know, just the level of the quality. There's all the artistic aspect about it being filmed in one take. It's just like groundbreaking on so many levels, and then so culturally relevant. It's just kind of like, I think within a couple of weeks it will just be totally saturated because it's being talked about. It's just kind of taken the world by storm.
Isn't it funny? Like, I mean, the content aside, like the way that humans, it's like this Justin Bieber syndrome kind of thing. Like, it's like this new thing comes on and people just devour it. Like, it reminds me of have you ever seen the movie The Perfumer?
No, but I remember you talking about it.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I didn't watch it after you described it because I was like, oh, that sounds really intense.
Anyone who hasn't seen it, you have to watch that movie. It's incredible. But it's about a boy who's born in Paris, who's in the slums of Paris, but he has an incredible sense of smell. And he can smell the ingredients of pretty much anything. And He's a bit spectrumy, I guess you'd say. Um, and then so people can latch onto it and start to kind of try and monetize his skills, like people that make perfumes. So he's like, yeah, a little bit of saffron, a little bit of this, a little bit of this. And as time goes on, he realizes that the smell of a woman, because he kisses a woman halfway through the movie, he's like, how can I recreate that intoxicating smell?
Right.
And so he starts to pretty much murder women, not in a
Become a
gruesome way, but
psychopath.
yeah, and just scrapes their skin and tries to, not scrapes it off, but tries
Yeah.
to get the essence. But at the end of the movie, I don't want to spoiler alert it, but
But you're about
he
to.
he breaks this vial open because he's about to get killed for his crimes, and everyone pretty much devours him. Like there's nothing left when the crowd moves away.
And what's in the vial is the smell of a woman, presumably, that he's
Yeah, and it's so
captured.
intoxicating that it's irresistible, and he gets completely crowded, and there's nothing left when the people pull off him. There's just his clothes.
So
Anything.
how would you see that in relating to Adolescence?
Well, I just think not like the movie was fantastic and I think that's all. But it's funny how we as a human race we these new things come on like a pop star like Justin Bieber or whatever it might be, Michael Jackson, and we devour them. We're just like, that kid now, his life is never going to be the same in a good way, but also in a bad way.
Well, the Stephen Graham said, look, he's working with Margot Robbie right now on The Young Heathcliff. There's obviously a new movie. He's already been nabbed and he's already starring. I mean, Margot Robbie is probably one of the biggest actresses out there. And
Right.
he's in a role with her.
Yeah.
So you kind of think, oh, how's this story going to pan out? But right now, it's like demanding awards for him, like
Yeah.
it's
But that
it's a
kid is
phenomenon.
not. It doesn't. It's not a net good positive for the actor, right? Like Macaulay Culkin or all of these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Um, and with like this insatiable desire, and I'm not saying I'm a part of it. I'm not a part of it, but it's like this insatiable thing when we find something that's extraordinary. We don't just say, "Oh, that's really beautiful," and then move on. It's like, no, we're gonna squeeze the life out of this. Like, we're gonna make this kid so fucking famous. We're gonna make so much money off of him. Um, and we just do it over and over again. Then our need to seek to pedestal these these situations or these actors or these scenarios, and we just keep doing it over and over and over again. It's like this weird
But you can't
thing.
help yourself because, like I said to you down in Mexico, you need to see this. And that's how it's caught on. I think it's a low budget. I don't know how much fanfare there was in releasing it, but literally less than 2 weeks ago, it wasn't being talked about. And now, 13 days later, pretty much everyone's heard about it.
Yeah,
And the topic, it's hit on multiple levels. Because what I said to you, aside from the story, is there's always this thought in my mind that there's nothing new under the sun, that everything's been done in our day and age. And then something like this comes out where they're basically doing a totally brand new art form as far as how they filmed it. So they're breaking ground there. And it's always amazing to me to realize, no, not everything has been done. And artists are often the ones who present something brand new to the world that you kind of think, how is it possible that not everything's been done? And yet that's true. And these guys quietly, in a low budget way, have pulled off something. And what was interesting is that another movie was released on the same day called Electric State, which was a massive budget. And it basically, I think it's gotten at the time, within 2 days, the Adolescent had as many views as this massive budget movie. And yet Adolescent, I don't know what the budget is. I should look it up on Wikipedia, but I think it was filmed in 5 days. They did 2 takes a day and there's no special effects.
Well, I heard that it was like that DiCaprio movie where they pre audit, like all of the parts were acted over and over and over again in private.
Yeah, it's no different than a theatre production where they did
Exactly
rehearsals. But when you look at how many takes it took, so the first episode, the second take was the one that was chosen to be aired. And then the second episode at the school, which took amazing amounts of choreography to get all those kids to, when you look at what happens in that school and the amount of movement there is, I think it was more like the 9th or 10th take was the one they kept, because it took so much organization.
Well, it's like a dance, isn't it? It's crazy. Yeah.
But what was in my mind is England really like that? I was
Some
watching
parts,
it going,
man.
bloody hell, man, that's terrifying.
Oh, some schools, yeah. I mean, Devonport, Plymouth, like, oh, yeah, for sure.
Rough.
That's not... Yeah, like that little tosser that was, like, teasing the kids and... Oh, like...
It's really kind of haunting to look at that and go, oh my goodness, that's some people's experience of school. Like
Yeah,
in
but
a
you never
city.
really did public school in the UK, did you?
No.
Yeah, it's like that. Like,
Oh,
it's
so
mouthy.
rough.
Shut up, miss.
I know, they're so mouthy to the teachers.
Oh, and she looked so worn down, didn't she, the
Oh,
headmaster? She was
man.
just like... She was done.
Bedraggled.
Yeah.
Incredibly done.
But Severance, I think, on Apple, I haven't seen it. It was the same type of thing. Like the way they filmed it's pretty
Brand
phenomenal,
new.
but it's huge budget.
Right.
It's almost like, I was saying to somebody the other day, it's almost like because I watched Electric City on the way home too, because of so
Electric
much time.
State. I think it's
Right.
Electric State, yeah.
It was a good movie, but it's the CGI has been so done so much now that we don't really get wowed by seeing these crazy CGI kind of scenes.
No.
And I think that just showed that they've almost like it's gone full circle, and now it's like, okay, now let's go down all the way back to the beginning, and make a really low budget, one camera, you know, no CGI.
There's actually drones that filmed Adolescence. So the whole thing, that's how when they're at a table, I was like, how did the cameraman move? Because I was thinking about the technical aspect of it, but it was actually a drone in the room that was able to do 360 and capture all of
so
that.
Loud.
Well, there were two men on the other side, like holding it in place.
Oh, okay.
So when you look at the making, they are still propping it up. Ooh,
right.
Something's kicking off a noise.
Oh, that's our water pump.
So that was the other thing, is that there's never been a movie filmed on a drone. There's never
the cameras are so good on drones.
Yeah, I guess so. And there's so many new things that they did. But also, I think if it hadn't been a compelling story as well as amazing script and amazing acting, it was like the perfect on every, like low budget. Everyone loves the underdog, so it's low budget. It's got an amazing script. It's got amazing actors. It's a new concept. Yeah. You know, it's like ticking the box on every single level.
Yeah, I thought that it was almost awkward at points where the camera just wouldn't change to another scene. It was like even in the van, it was like they didn't leave anything. It was like you saw not only the
boring journey,
the really juicy part, it was like, and now he's going to walk over and photocopy a piece of paper. Or when he when he did the fingers, like the fingerprints.
Yeah.
He did the whole right hand. He did the whole left hand too. It was like, let's do all of it.
Well, when I first started watching it, I didn't know it was all in one take. So I think probably the most poignant moment for me is because I've got a 12-year-old boy and this kid's 13. He gets shuffled into this police car at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you don't know what the hell's going on because I had no spoilers. And for me, that journey to the police station where the kid keeps looking back and crying and all you can see is his shoulders and the back of his head. And physically, he looks so much like my son that I found it really difficult to watch because in that moment, I didn't know where this story was heading. All I was thinking about is if this was my kid, they would be being traumatized right now from that separation, from being ripped from your family home, woken up and not, you know, you think at the time he doesn't know what's happening. Well, he does more than we realize later. You realize that. But when I was watching his physical body, I think what hit me is the vulnerability of a boy. And my two girls are so fearless and so ballsy that Wilfie, my youngest, who's 12, he's way more fragile than the girls, and he's one that I feel is way more sensitive. And so to watch a kid, and I'm constantly putting my son in that position, thinking, oh no, this would be so traumatizing. Oh, this is unbearable. This is unbearable for the family. You'd just be speeding to get there, to be at the police station with him, not wanting all of this horrible, traumatic thing to be inflicted on your kid. And you
Yeah.
could see that in the parents. And I just felt it so much in that first episode, like the panic.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was. I like you say, I didn't know what was going on. I was like, is the dad involved? Is the
Yeah.
is there any? And that's what was so great about it, is they didn't do the classic Hollywood. Let's make the dad a rapist.
Yeah.
And he manipulated him to do the kill. It was so realistic. It was
Yeah.
but yeah, I couldn't figure it out, like, because I couldn't figure it out for a while. But then when you see the video of him doing the
Just like,
deed, it's like,
no.
holy shit, like
And
what
the
his dad, and the
devastation.
dad like pulled away, and his kid reached out to touch him.
Yeah.
Um,
It was
yeah,
brilliant.
I was like on the plane doing my best not to burst into tears.
Yeah. The dad,
it-
you could just feel his pain and shock.
oh yeah, I mean, as a dad watching that, like, and as a man watching that, I so related to the way that he just suppressed everything, and at the end when he lost it, I'm like, I 100% could see myself doing that, and I've
Yeah.
done that. Like,
Yeah.
where that whole scene where his van gets vandalized and he goes to the, he's like,
Yeah.
let's shake it off. Let's just make this day better. Like, let's do that. And it was so realistic, the way the
I know.
daughter was just texting in the middle, and
I know. And I was like,
it
man, are
was,
they going to film this whole car ride?
yeah.
Again, the
And then,
mundaneness. I'm like, oh no, we got to drive home as well.
yeah, but that when he met the guy in that home, I could feel that kettle boiling, and I was talking to Tara a bit about it, and I was like, I'm not condoning when I've lost my temper, I felt a lot of shame after watching that movie as a dad, and where I failed, because I've definitely got, no, I wouldn't say it's a hot temper. I've got a temper that slowly boils, and then when it goes, it's not pretty. And I've never hit anybody, but I've hit things, and I've seen Gabriel many times when he's been around me. Not many times, but when this has happened, he just freezes up
Yeah.
and starts crying, and I feel like absolute shit.
Um,
But when you lose your temper, you you can't stop it. It's like when people get into bar fights, they say they just see red and they can't stop it. They don't even know what they're doing. There's so much cortisol or adrenaline firing at that point. But I felt so, my oldest son, Raven, when you have your first child, you're just so underdeveloped as a human being to be able to navigate it. I think the only benefit of having kids when you're really old, like when you're 40, say,
yeah.
is that you've settled down a bit. And when you have kids in your 20s, like I did, you're still trying to figure out life. And then this child comes in and says, like, you've had no training and you have to figure it all out. And
Yeah.
and I mean, yeah, he definitely, I think the oldest kid gets the hard end of the stick, you're just
Yeah.
trying to, and then by the time you've had your third kid, it's like, yeah,
you're chilled.
you've
I
chilled a
think
bit.
what you forget when you lose your temper, and the final episode showcased it so well, is people don't just flip their lid to begin with. There's this gradual heat turning up.
Yeah.
He's no, we'll make the day good. Yep, yep. And then suddenly the kettle boils and he can't keep it together any longer. And I think when you do lose your shit, it's easy to feel guilty and forget what it took to get you to boiling point, all the incremental frustrations and the things going badly.
And that's what I so related to it, and I've so been there. It's like the bills haven't got paid, something happens at work, you trip over and break, scratch, all of this stuff, and it happens, and you just try and keep composure, don't break, and then something happens, like, you you drop your glass on the floor.
Yeah, and it's just the final straw.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've been under a lot of pressure lately, just with, financial pressure and stuff like that. And I think I raised my voice, and Tara's like, why did you do that? And you don't have to do that, she said. And that's not something she said that often. Like, Tara's very, very composed and tempered. Um, and I said to her, I said, why do you ask, why do I have to do that? I don't know why I have to do that. Why I did that is because think about the day I've had.
Mm.
And I'm not condoning what I've done, but to ask why I did that is crazy. Like, why I did that, I didn't want to do that. I did that because I'm carrying a lot of responsibility. I'm feeling a lot of pressure. And such and such scenario, I can't remember what it was just, so what I really need is like, I'm sorry, babe, or whatever. It was like, don't ask me. Well, I don't know why I did that. Why I did that is just I just reached a breaking point.
Well, I think what happens when you're dealing with an underlying stress, particularly financial, you wake up in the morning and it's already the backdrop of your day. So it's it's like having an aircon unit going. It's already the white noise of your life, the stress of shit. Am I going to make ends meet? And you don't necessarily acknowledge it, but it's setting you on edge because it's underlying noise that just won't go away. And then when you layer in the chaos and unexpected things that happen throughout your day, you're already dealing with an underlying stressor that isn't necessarily at the forefront, but it's just always rumbling around in the background.
Yeah.
And that's what's hard about ongoing stress, is that it sets you on edge to not be able to deal with dropping a cup, which is the minor thing, but it just piles on top. And I did think Adolescence showcased that amazingly, about how in family life you just try and keep it together for the greater good for everyone. And then the cracks obviously they're in a high stress environment all the time, but it still is relatable. That's what's incredible about, I can't relate to any of that story apart from having children and the worry of what they're being exposed to, and the responsibility of how much do we monitor. But even though they're looking at a really extreme situation, you can still relate to it. And that's what's the magic of artistry, I think, when they hit the nail on the head. It's like, for some reason, everyone can relate to this on one level or another.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the part when he was getting interviewed by the therapist, which was another incredible moment, but when he said, has your dad ever lost his temper? He's like, yeah, well, not really. No, he's really good. He's like, I mean, one time he smashed the shed to pieces, and we thought it was kind of funny. And I was just like, fuck, man. Like, as a parent, you just won't do it perfect, and your kid will love you, but you've affected their life. Like, I mean, Gabe was sitting there and I was watching him get off the plane, and I was just remembering all the times that I've, maybe got too angry or frustrated and stressed him out. Like, he's such an empath, right? And I was just like, it's already done. Like, you can't undo those moments. They're done.
No.
And you can heal from them, but it's part of it's already part of the patchwork quilt that is them. That is not going to get sewn out of it. It's in there. You cannot, and that's like the humbling part of a parent, is you'll do it all right until you've done it wrong, and then you've done it wrong, and you can't undo that wrong, and now you take a seat with all the other parents that did it right until they did it wrong. We're all there.
But
And we've
something
all
Sophie
Karen.
said to me a few times, this is our oldest sister who lives in Holland. She's got 3 older boys, and because I'm going through a lot at the moment, she said to me a few times, she's like, you can't shield your children from life. And, my kids are getting a full frontal exposure to complications of life right now. And I want to shield them desperately from it. And it helps me to remember that just the degree of struggle and pain and challenge of life, you can't shield them from it, because that is a massive component to life, is the hardship.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
we desperately want to just hold that back as long as humanly possible. But
I think it's
eventually the
definitely a
banks
mama
break.
bears. Yeah, yeah, they do. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think if you have a good relationship, the mom, it's very, very clear that the mama bear wants to protect them from the world, keep them in the cave,
Yeah.
and the dad is like, no, 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 we got to teach you how to hunt, we got to teach you how to survive, we got to show you the ugliness out here. And the mom's like, no, 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 let's hold it off for another year.
Yeah.
And but you're in a role right now that's a bit different than that.
Mm.
Where you're maybe having to do both roles. And I have that tension in my relationship with Tara. She wants to keep them out with the fairies as long as possible. And it's not something that I've been taught. It's just something that's in me. It's just naturally comes
I think
out.
it's
I want to,
instinctively male to
yeah, it's
show
an
them
instinct.
danger and to expose them to adventure and risk.
Yeah, it's like we were in Mexico. You're allowed to drive like four-wheelers, like quads, around the town, right? And Gabe was driving with me, Tara, and Amelia on the back, which is a little sketchy. And she's like, we had to go to this restaurant, and I was like, yeah, it's up around the roundabout and down there. But Tara's like, no, 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 we don't want him going around the roundabout. Just go straight. We'll go this back way. I'm like, no, no, go up around the roundabout. It'll be fine. She's like, okay. But it's just in me to put the child into a position where it's like a little more than they can handle to just because I know deep down they can handle it.
Yeah.
And sure enough,
That is the gift of men. I
Mm,
do think that's an amazing role that men have, or fathers.
yeah.
It's a crucial role that's kind of overlooked.
I think yeah, I mean, the pendulum always swings too far, but I think that we need to, as people raising kids, is to give over, like say, okay, now it's, let's say, okay, yeah, I get that that's your role. It's not like we're competing with each other. It's like we have, and then, when Gabe hurts himself, he doesn't want to see anyone but his mum, because his mum is mum bear. It's like,
Nurturer.
Dad doesn't comfort me nearly as much. Like, he'll have a cry with me and it'll all be worked through. Everything will be fine. We'll get home and he'll go back in and start the whole process again, because what he really needs is mum's affection.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
And I can't feel insecure about that. But, I've noticed with my older kids, if they're going through something that's like really like tough, like, oh, I want to rent my first apartment, or I'm dealing with this issue at work, they call me, not their mum, because they'll know they get the truth from me. They don't want, sometimes the kids don't want to be pampered. They just want truth. Just give me the honest.
Yeah.
And I know that
Yeah.
Dad gives me that.
Yeah.
Mum
No
gives me the
mincing of the
comfort.
word. You won't
Yeah.
mince your words. You'll be a straight shooter. Yeah.
Man, it was funny in that show. Like, the Liverpool accents were so
Oh
strong.
my! And all the little words, when you don't live in England a long time, the stuff
Yeah, like,
that they say, like
they call each other.
nonce.
Oh yeah, I don't even know what that is still.
I
Did you?
was
Probably
like, I need to Google that, because like it's been so long
the
since
fucks
I've
and
heard.
ons.
Let's go to the pictures and have you open your prezzies. Everything's got the kind of almost childish kind of, the way they say things is like, have your brekkie.
Yeah, they say pet. Hey,
Yeah,
pet. Everyone's a pet.
yeah.
That's affectionate.
I
And
needed the subtitles for the whole thing, even
oh
though I'm
wow,
English. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
Liverpool's strong accent. But remember when he was like, "Do you want a cup of tea?" And if he doesn't want it, he's like, "Nah, you're all right."
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like, "No,
Tar, love.
thanks."
They'll say
It's like, "No,
tar,
you're all
tar pet.
right." What? Well,
Yeah,
no, I'm
and
all
I'm like,
right. I
what?
just asked you for a cup of tea.
It is a different language, and I'd forgotten. Like, I need to Google what nonce means, because I was like, I'd totally forgotten what that means.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
an acronym.
In fact, I was thinking also after watching, because I did watch it like right when it came out, about other, because the kids were around when I was watching it, and I've kind of don't mind watching slightly uncomfortable movies with them. So we often have really interesting talks about it, because I'll say, look, this is about the impact of social media and just the society we live in. So we have a conversation about that. And I was remembering, just movies that I found to be really important to watch with my kids, and it sounds really bizarre, but for my daughters, the Twilight series, I can't count the amount of times, because we've watched that together so many times, and it's poorly acted, and it's, it's
Cheesy.
a teen drama. And I think as a parent with daughters, it's probably one of the best movie, because I do a running commentary. My kids know that if they're watching a movie with me, I'm going to be like, that's dysfunctional, that's codependency, don't ever go with a guy like that. And I will, and it's an amazing opportunity to have conversation, because usually in movies it's such a kind of extreme example of something. So in Twilight, it's an amazing example of codependency. And so I'll say to my girls, and what's interesting is they're now seeing it play out as teenagers in the friends they've got who are in relationships. So Bella and Edward have a very codependent relationship where they're totally absorbed with each other, where her friendships go spiral, and she neglects her friends as soon as she finds him, and they become totally absorbed with each other. So when we watch it, I'll say, that is the most beautiful example of codependency. They are wrapped up in each other's world. She loses touch with her friendship group. It becomes an unhealthy attachment. And what's interesting is that now they've got friends who have got relationships. They will see that pattern play out. They'll say, oh, my friend's got a boyfriend and I never see her anymore. They just want to stay in the bedroom all summer. They'll make plans and then cancel plans because the boyfriend is top dog. It's a very possessive relationship. And they see that play out. And I'll say, well, that's a tendency when you're a teenager, because there is this kind of thing that can happen before you have a real strong identity in yourself. Your identity can get wrapped up in someone else really easily. And it's so important to foster friendships, your girlfriends, and not abandon them as soon as you get a boyfriend, and make sure you nurture your other relationships and don't become intoxicated with this person. Because another thing that happens is when they break up, suddenly the friend will come back on the scene because they're lonely. And my daughters will feel kind of, yeah, but you dropped me like a hotcake when you had a boyfriend, and now all of a sudden you want to hang out. And I don't think there's any better innocent version of how codependency happens in teenage life than Twilight, because it's so dysfunctional. And it so brilliantly showcases it. And everyone revolves around Bella. It's not just Edward that's codependent on her. They've got an entire community that are trying to protect this incredibly unremarkable girl who brings nothing to the table whatsoever. Like, she is entirely not interesting. And yet, obviously, for the sake of the story, they all bend over backwards to save this unremarkable girl. Yeah. And the only reason Edward likes her is because he can't read her thoughts. And if he could, it would be such drivel, he wouldn't be interested in her at all.
She's definitely a Hollywood crush of mine, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's beautiful.
I think it's because she looks so, this thing that she does where she stares at the ground, and I don't know, there's something about it that looks, I don't know if it's vulnerable. I don't know what it is. She looks mysterious.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a mystery about her.
Well, there's also people feel this need to protect her because she's so incapable. She's very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And she's kind of come from a broken family, and there's that complexity there. But, the only thing she has to talk about is wanting to become a vampire. That's the only thing that she really has to say, period.
Yeah.
And then there's Jacob, who's a terrible actor, but he challenges her more and is way more feisty and has spark and actually talks back a bit and is way more intriguing as far as relationship dynamic.
Yeah. It's quite comical after a while when you watch it second time, and it's just
with
like
the wigs.
they're just constantly looking down at the ground, constantly sad, like constantly just like.
I know, it's brilliant because it's just like, but that's teenagers. they'll kind of supposedly fall in love, and then they kind of just mope around. And you think, okay, is this a good thing? Are you guys liking each other, or are you just totally enmeshed?
Yeah.
And but for conversation, I do think that there's, like with Harry Potter, we'll have so many conversations about relationships in the Harry Potter movie, and compatibility, and Hermione is way too smart for Ron, and she's mating down, which is really not going to be compatible. She should be with Harry. And Ron brings nothing. He doesn't bring anything to. So from a kind of hypergamous point of view, Ron is not a good choice.
You don't think so? You don't think Ron is like, maybe like she's probably the, she's going to go out and make all the money, and he's going to just be this stable.
But he's not even stable. He's got a rejection complex and an inferiority complex. So he gets very threatened by Harry and Hermione's kind of intellect. And even the fact, he's, bless him, he's redheaded. He comes from a broke
bless
family.
Those redheads.
And he's not very smart. But from a hypergamous point of view, she's mating down, and I'll explain this. So that's when we watch Harry Potter every November to the lead up to Christmas, we're basically analysing part of it, saying, why doesn't that relationship work? It wouldn't work in real time, because eventually she's got a higher IQ than him, and she's going to outsmart him, and then she'll end up looking down on him. Whereas Harry is more on her level of, just intelligence. And he's funny, like Ron can be funny, but other than that, he's not got the longevity for a relationship.
You do see that sometimes, though, with powerful people. They have like a kind of just a totally... I can remember watching, what was the one with Margaret Thatcher, the movie about Margaret Thatcher?
Yeah, I was thinking of exactly her, yeah.
Yeah, like she's running a country, and her husband's just like,
putting the kettle on.
Putting the kettle on. Cook tea, love. And it's just like this stable...
But in the home dynamic, when you see her at home, whether that's realistic, I don't know, but she always has to get home to cook him dinner. And I think the dynamic behind closed doors is that she wasn't this power woman. She was actually quite a housewifey, I don't know how
cabinet, right? Wouldn't she?
Yeah.
Having a cabinet meeting, she's like, I made a nice little
casserole.
Yeah, casserole.
But I think there's certain movies, and it's made kind of watching Adolescence has made me think about other movies that I've watched with my kids that are good conversation starters.
Have your kids watched that Adolescence then?
Yeah, they dipped in and out, and we discussed it a bit. It wasn't. Actually, Indiana watched all of it. She stayed up to like 3 a.m. watching it. Yeah, but I don't think unless you're a parent, you really understand all of the gravity of it. As a kid, you're like, well, of course they're on social media. Everyone is. What's the big deal? They don't get it.
Right.
But this is a big deal.
Well, it's the same as like that movie, The Social Dilemma. I tried to watch it with Jazzy, and I was like, oh my God. It was
they're like, what's the problem, man?
Yeah, she's just like, I know what you're trying to do, Dad.
Yeah. I'm out. She's already
And then after the movie, is there anything you'd like to talk about? Nope. Like, fuck,
Do you ever feel like depressed and you compare yourself to other people on social media? Maybe. Don't know. It's just, they don't give you much to work with, right?
Yeah, I didn't really like I was talking to Amelia about, because they were saying like a green heart means something, a red heart means something, a kidney bean, and I think
I had no idea.
And I don't know if your kids would know that either. I think it might be something from maybe Europe or the UK, like because he was talking about that chauvinistic guy. Who's that guy? The brothers that are all over the news. The ones that always wear sunglasses.
Andrew Tate. I saw them name drop him.
Yeah, about he's talking about 80% of the women, like 20% of the guys, or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, because I know that the UK has had cell phones way before us, in Canada. And, so yeah, I don't know, because I never knew that those hearts mean different things.
Well, I thought what was interesting in the name dropping of Andrew Tate is he obviously has a way worse reputation in England than he does here. Because I know that he is a very provocative person, but when I started seeing little reels of him and these very provocative statements, I took a deep dive and I listened to about 7 or 8 hours of his interviews because I wanted to know, okay, what is the fuss all about? And other than the fact that he can be kind of obnoxious and provocative, I honestly came away with the general impression was that he's encouraging boys to work out, take responsibility, go to the gym, better yourself.
Like Jordan Peterson's whole
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, I didn't, of course, you see him in these chat rooms where he's being really kind of aggressive and obnoxious. But I don't know how much of that is spliced, just like they do with Trump, where they put different things together and it makes them look really, or they take something out of context. But long form interview, he is very obnoxious, but his message, as far as I could gather, was literally grow some balls, get to the gym, get up in the morning, make your bed, be disciplined, dress well, and, to take responsibility for your life. And I couldn't really fault him on that. I was like, okay, well, that's pretty decent message. And yet he's really got a bad, like, people really don't like him in the UK. So I don't know what's happened or whether it is just old stuff from when he was, because I know he's a father now and, he's a mixed bag and he is very kind of, he really knows how to put a spanner in the works and say things that are aggravating. But his message seems to be pretty decent.
I mean, it definitely rubs your woman's liver kind of the wrong way. I mean, this whole thing is very male driven, male. He's catering to the males, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a right leaning female, you're definitely going to be triggered by some of the stuff he says.
I think it would be left leaning.
Yeah,
liberal.
left leaning. Sorry.
Yeah. Right wouldn't. I'm probably more right, and I would say I can see how he's provocative, just like Trump can be provocative. But when you listen to them in long form interviews and get the whole context, it's not nearly as bad as these short clips.
No, and I mean his what he's been put in jail for aside, I mean, because that was still not proven whether he was trafficking women and all of that stuff. But I mean, I was listening just yesterday about, I had no idea that Elon Musk is like, people are blowing up Teslas, scratching swastikas in the side of people's Teslas.
Wow.
And you think, yeah, the soundbite thing where they splice together, it's so fucking dangerous. Like it can make people, like they're just
form
like
the wrong opinion.
seething, like protesting about this darling of the left who is like, oh, you buy a Tesla and you're doing the right thing for the environment. Now it's like you buy a Tesla and you're a Nazi.
Yeah, it's amazing how it's changed the narrative.
And when they set light to these cars, the environmental impact is so massive. Like, these batteries are so dangerous to be burning.
Yeah.
It's so bonkers.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, I even did a big deep dive into the red pill, which really, what's the side thing, I suppose, this series is trying to address misogyny and the incel thing. And I did listen to hours and hours of quite well-known red pill guys, and I can see that the thing that I went away with is they seem to have a disdain for women, and yet they still want a woman.
What would you classify as a red pill? What do you mean by
Well,
red
red
pill
pill
guy?
guys would be, I guess, they seem to be guys that they're looking for a subservient woman. They want to have a wife who dresses modestly. This is just a really kind of surface. that they believe in men's authority and, they're not into the whole women's lib thing, that you settle down, you have a wife, she's subservient, she cooks your dinners. I could be wrong here, but that's the impression you get when someone says red pill. It's guys who've kind of woken up to masculinity. And I think Andrew Tate would be seen as a red pill guy. And I can't say that I know the ins and outs of all of it, but I think it's like the true masculine,
Yeah. Which I personally think that there is some good in that philosophy, and
Totally
because I think that the pendulum has swung way too far, where you've got demasculated, or whatever you want to call it,
emasculated.
emasculated men moping around, who don't know how to, I guess I believe that too, like deep down. Oh man, you could get into trouble with this conversation, but
I know.
deep
It's like,
down,
oh,
when the rubber really hits the road, most women want a man to say, "This is what we're doing." Like they can see their way through the fire, you
yeah,
know, like, but not all the time. It's like at times when times get tough, you can kind of see when you're in a situation like in Mexico, we were in a situation that got a bit scary, and you can see the roles, like all of that other bullshit fades away, and the core kind of like Neanderthal, like this, how we were created roles start to come to the surface, and it's like they want, like Tara wants her man to like protect her and see the way through the smoke. This is what we're doing.
yeah,
You might not
totally.
feel it's right. I know it's right. Hang on to my tail. We'll go in this way. Okay,
Yeah,
Dad's got it. And it's the same. Remember that movie, Black Sails?
yeah,
Fantastic show, like incredible. But what I really liked about that show was that this sailor, the captain of the ship had this, like, when push comes to shove and you're in the middle of a storm, the captain that's the kind of the asshole normally, he's the guy that all of the pirates or sailors wanted at the helm, because socially he's a pain in the ass, and he's a bit
right.
of a recluse, and he doesn't really tend to our wounds as the kind of just the sailors on the boat. But when we're in the middle of a fight, this guy fucking
Yeah,
sees through he's the guy we want,
yeah.
so
And I mean, John Gray gives a brilliant example of this, because even with men and women's biology, he said, if you're in a cabin in the woods and it's nighttime and you hear a bear outside, as a woman, you want the man to go, right, I'm getting out there, I'm sorting this out. And he said, if the roles, and then the man comes in after he's like, we're good, I've walked around the perimeter, we're safe, don't you
yeah.
worry, lady. And then they have great sex. But he said, let's just reverse that. And the man hears a bear and says, I'm really scared, I don't want to go out there. Will you go out there, to the woman? And the woman ends up going out there round the perimeter. It's the biggest turn off in history for a man to say, can you go out? I'm just kind of scared. Can you check? And he just said that simple role reversal, if a woman's left to do that, they ain't going to be having hot sex that night. Because the man's like in a fetal position on the bed. Like, I'm really scared of spiders.
Yeah.
And
She's like,
and
what a pussy.
what? Yeah, exactly. And, a woman might fulfill that role and be happy to do so, but it won't result in hot sex. And I just thought it was a really simple, like the other day, my daughter said, oh, my boyfriend wants to go out on a date. And I said, well, where's he taking you? And she goes, well, he doesn't know. He asked me where I wanted to go. And I was like, no, 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 no. You want a man who says, be ready at 6 p.m. I've taken care of everything. I'm taking care of the evening. All you need to be is be ready. And she just started laughing because she knew it was true. I'm like, a man needs to be decisive, and it doesn't even matter if he's taking you to Tim Hortons or sitting on the beach for free. A man with a plan is a man that you're going to be attracted to. A man who says, well, what do you want to do? I don't mind. Will you come up with the ideas? No, I mean, a woman might have a million ideas, but it's like an inversion of what I think is good dynamics,
Yeah, I
because
mean,
men need to just go, hey, be ready. I'm taking you on. A woman is just like, wow, this guy knows where he's going. Even if it's to Tim Hortons, it's like the woman doesn't actually care where they end up. A man with a plan is really appealing. And I think that's what you're getting at, is when push comes to shove, women want a man with a plan.
yeah, I totally agree. And yeah, I try to encourage Amelia with that when her boyfriends are being wishy-washy, or, it's like you can tell that she's not attracted to it. But I think it's all about, respecting each other's roles. And, I was listening to Andrew Schultz's new bit,
Oh, yeah.
he's being interviewed. He's actually a very intellectual guy, but
Oh, very much. Yeah.
his whole new stand-up thing is about, I guess they couldn't have kids. And anyway, he's just been enamored with parenthood, and he thinks that, having a woman having a child should be like glorified the same as a CEO woman,
Yeah.
and how he believes, because obviously he's seen the light now because he's got kids, and he sees what a hero his wife is for having this baby and doing all of the mothering things. And he goes, I hate it when we're walking down the street and my wife's like, because she used to be a career woman, and friends would be like, what are you doing now? And she goes, oh, mom, kind of in this negative.
She says, I'm just a stay-at-home woman. He says,
Just
why
a
does she
stay-at-home
say
wife.
just?
Yeah. Yeah,
I've seen that.
Yeah, I really think that as a society, we still haven't figured it out yet, because I still feel like if you say the Andrew Tate type of things, it's still very, very controversial. And even there's still this clash between a man and a woman wants some of the man's stuff, and the man wants some of the woman's stuff. And it's like, I think we're just trying to unravel it. I can feel it, but like the conversations are very, are not smooth when you come into those types of things, because there's a lot of feelings that are still very raw, for one reason or another, I guess.
But even I think what's interesting is the science is coming out, the biology. So if a man doesn't chase a woman and the woman does the chasing, she produces more testosterone, and his estrogen will automatically go up if he's not chasing, because he's in the feminine role. And
Right.
What's interesting, this article I was reading was basically saying men will lose interest in sex a lot quicker if the woman is in the pursuing role, because she's producing more testosterone, he's actually producing more estrogen because he's not doing the chasing. So there's lots of noise going on in the background.
Oh, sorry.
So it's basically saying, regardless of what most men, if a woman pursues them, they're like, oh, this is awesome. I don't think men complain about a woman pursuing them, but from a biological point of view, he's probably going to lose interest in her quicker if they actually have a relationship, and he won't know why, because she's in the driver's seat, and that's not good for women to constantly be in the driver's seat saying, okay, we're going to go here, we're going to do this. Women don't really enjoy that after a period of time. It might be attractive to a man who doesn't have the energy, who's like, wow, this is awesome, this woman literally landed on my lap. But a year later, that dynamic, I think, actually doesn't do them hormonally very well. Like a woman, in order to fall in love, she needs to have 10 times the level of normal estrogen in her body. So her body needs to be producing 10 times higher amounts of estrogen just to be able to fall in love. So if she's in the driver's seat, she's not even producing enough estrogen to have those emotions, because she's not going to have high estrogen.
Interesting.
Yeah. And something he said recently, which I found fascinating, he says, I feel really sorry for women these days, because women who are low in estrogen are more likely to be attracted to an emotionally unavailable man. And women who are low in estrogen will find an emotionally available man to be boring. They will judge an emotionally available man as boring, and they will actually much more likely to be drawn to the emotionally unavailable, and that's because of their low estrogen. And I thought, And he basically said how sad it is that because of all these hormonal imbalances and men's low testosterone and women's low estrogen, it's actually affecting how we cooperate in relationships and who we're attracted to. Which is like, wow, okay, that's a factor that you don't always think about. Like in Denmark, because there's so many stay-at-home dads, they're finding that men are so high in estrogen because they're in the nurturing role.
They're growing boobs.
Well, they're getting more aggressive and disgruntled and depressed because that whole cliche of, oh, that guy's got too much testosterone, he's aggressive, isn't actually true. Men who are domestic violence men, when they test them, they're always really low in testosterone because it's the presence of too much estrogen that makes men aggressive and irritable. So if their hormones are out of whack, let's say they're in the nurturing role, men are more likely to be irritated and disgruntled because they're not in a competitive sport, they're not at the gym, they're not in an environment at work where it's, you know, they're more feminized.
The divine masculine.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's something I see in the men's group I'm part of, and you know, it's like it's really, it's only for men, obviously, and the masculine is really encouraged. Like, you know, like part of the process will be, you know, like when you're asking what you're going through. Like, I remember one guy is like, you know, going through something with my wife, and I feel like she might have cheated on me, and the guys will be like, "Oh, well, how does it make you feel?" It's like, angry. Well, what do you want to do about that anger? It's like, I just feel rage. Okay. And so then they put boxing gloves on the guy, and they put like a pillow on the wall, and we're, you know, it's like 18, 20 men there, and he'll just beat the shit out of this pillow.
Awesome.
And it's like,
that's so cool.
You know, when I tell my wife about that, or when you talk about that with women, they're like, they just don't, it's like, ew, like he's a violent man. What you're saying, you're encouraging violence. Not that that's been said, but I can feel this energy, you know, it's like, yeah, you don't get it because you don't have testosterone inside you like a man. Like I even said that to Tara the other day when I said, you know, when like this chemical, like you don't understand what it does to a person. Like when it explodes inside you, it's like you can't stop it, you know. And there's a beautiful side to that when you have to like move a tree off the road or kill a bear. You know, but sometimes it comes out at odd times, and it explodes. And so I mean, it's I think we're in a bit of a mess, aren't we? And we're figuring our way out. But it's you know.
Well, these shows basically are the conversation starters, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean,
what my concern is about it is where they say, oh, you know, I saw on a reel today, they're now going to introduce into schools the conversation about misogyny. And my concern, and this is all because of the show, you know, dropping 2 weeks ago, they're already starting to develop a curriculum in response to adolescence. And I just, my concern is that this whole misogyny thing that's been this overused word is going to be, once again, men need to damper down, and, you know, like the result will be emasculated men. And I'm like, please don't do that with this.
That's not the only thing because the movie showed that she was being bullied by her.
Yeah, but that's not the takeaway. The takeaway is misogyny. I know, and it's like, oh no, please don't take this in that direction. And I thought them name dropping Andrew Tate was absolutely intentional.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I felt that too, and I've like when the psychology part happened, and that's where, you know, you could, when he started raging in front of the psychologist, you know, and it was like she suddenly saw this, you know, this guy's the demon, or I don't know. I didn't like the way that turned, if I'm honest, like deep down.
Yeah.
Like he was a troubled child. Like I was telling Tara about the show, she hasn't seen it, and she's like, you know, I was like, yeah, this kid who was in a fairly stable family stabbed a girl to death. and Tara immediately said, yeah, I mean, a 13-year-old's brain hasn't developed to the point where they can reason. Like they don't, at that moment, their whole world is like we have ability as adults to be able to zoom back and see the bigger picture. But as a child, your brain hasn't developed. And because the whole time you're like, how did he go from this nice kid to stabbing someone to death? And everyone's, I feel like even the father was like, how did you do that? And I'm like, well, when the father was raging and at that kid and like outside the chain link fence there, he raised his hand to slap him, right? But the reason came in and said, no, he could quickly do in milliseconds. If I hit this kid, I'm going to go to jail.
Yeah.
I've gone far enough. This is as far as I can go. And he had this ability to be able to back down. But a young child doesn't. It's like full snap. And I'm like, there's a very thin line between me and that, me and the murderer. Like, I feel like that's something that Peterson talks about all the time. And I totally agree with it. It's like we stand there and point the finger at these criminals. And I think an honest person can say, yeah, but for the grace of God, there go I.
Yeah.
It's like that. I've seen that in me. Like if you actually were honest if we could all see each other's minds out on a big screen, we'd be
We've
so
murdered
ashamed.
many times.
Oh, 100%. Murdered, raped, hit. Our mind is a cesspool, really. And there's this like a properly developed and balanced brain can process it, but a murderer has an imbalance in their brain. It's like an imbalance or something, or their circumstance, obviously.
I think when you're a teenager, I remember vaguely, when someone, and I'm sure this happened to you, is that when you were the brunt of a joke, you just see red and you aren't thinking, just let it lie. It's just one person's opinion, walk away. I think without that frontal lobe having developed and that irrational lack of self-control is, obviously in this story, he's incensed because this girl's picking on him and he doesn't have the perspective of going, not everyone thinks that about me. It's like, it's very hard for them to have that perspective of step back. This is just one person's opinion and it doesn't really matter that much. Even as adults, that could be hard to let go of. But I do remember as a kid, like if someone thought something about me, the frustration of the injustice and not knowing how to handle, knowing that they, let's say they were making fun or teasing. I think kids just want to lash out and do something really irrational. And
yeah, I mean, you've seen tantruming kids in the mall, right? It's like, it's so, you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Their brain is just cannot decipher it all. It's yeah.
But I think what would be unfortunate is, and that's my one concern about this, is that once again it will circle back around to boys being misogynistic and how can we manage their hatred of women. And I just hope they go beyond that to go, well, sitting them in schools and being on, like, hey, let's develop programs where they're getting active, and which essentially people like Andrew Tate are really supportive of, like, go to the gym, get active, get out of your bedroom. And these people probably need to develop programs like that where they're actually getting these kids to be physical rather than sedentary sitting on computers. And I just hope that it goes in that direction rather than, oh, once again, it's hatred of women and men are so misogynistic. And I just think that's a bit of a old narrative that's been.
Yeah. I mean, it was clear in the movie that he said, I'm ugly. I'm ugly. Everyone says I'm ugly. And yeah, it was like, I felt for that. I didn't feel, but I did feel in the psychologist moments, when he raged at her and her face just had this shock and
like she was being traumatized.
Yeah, she's like, oh, there's the devil. There's the monster.
Where in actual fact, in some ways, I think his rage was, well, yeah, of course, he's expressing anger. I didn't have. It kind of looked like it was being framed as if the anger was negative.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if the anger is negative. Like, it just needs to be channeled.
Yeah, I mean, he
I
kind of
don't know.
like, over, like he stood over her, right? And he was like,
Mm,
hey, am I
yeah,
making you scared? And he's like, "Rah," he does that
yeah.
thing, that jump, which I wonder if that was scripted or not, because that was quite clever.
Very
Um,
good. That's an amazing moment.
yeah, but
But I was in two minds about what they're going to do with it. Because the one thing about these guys that I have listened to, they call them red pill men, is what's interesting, and even Andrew Tate can give this impression that he has a disdain for women, and yet he wants a woman on his arm. And my feeling is, if you don't like women, just stay single. You know, because they want to be seen with women, and yet there is this kind of impression that you get sometimes with some of these guys where they talk and they're like, obviously been really wounded by women, and their reaction to that is, I want a submissive, quiet woman who will serve me. And that tends to be what a lot of them are kind of, you don't want a woman who dances on the dance floor provocatively. You want a woman who dresses very modestly. That's the kind of thing that I hear, and I don't know if I've misjudged it, but my feeling is if you really don't like us that much, just stay single. Don't be then going, oh, and here's how to get 3 women on your arm, which is what they
yeah,
tend to. They still talk about women with interest at the same time. They're looking for something very particular, and they're there. Women are just pretty hopeless and helpless, and we need to be these masculine. And I just think, I want to be celebrated. If I'm in a relationship with someone, I don't want to feel that sense of disdain for the feminine. I want to just have someone to go, I love what you do. What you bring to the table is unique. It's something that men can't bring to the table, and I'm rooting for you and cheering you on. And that's basically, like, why wouldn't anyone want that? But I think that men who've been cheated and betrayed and let down by women can get this erosion, and they get this real suspicion of the feminine.
yeah,
And I look at some of these clips and I think probably most of these guys have a story of some sort of major wound from the feminine, and out of that has come this macho, you need a particular type of women because all the rest, a woman who's strong is really dangerous. And when in actual fact, I think that if you're going to have a woman, just celebrate her for her femininity and what she does bring, rather than trying to squeeze her into a different form.
yeah. Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that movie specifically, it didn't seem to me like his home life was anything that was crazily dysfunctional.
No, they were still together. They
They
loved
were
each
still
other.
together. Yeah, he was, I mean, at the end when he was crying, it was so powerful. I mean, I think the interaction with him and his wife at the end was just like, what have we done wrong? What, and he's like, I could have done better. And I do feel as a parent, I think we could have all done better.
Yeah.
I, I, I but I just feel like he was a product of shitty school. Like, it just seemed like he's at the wrong place at the wrong time, and rage took over. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think that kid was like a psychopath.
No.
I think that, he had a knife on him, and when she, like in the parking lot, when she pushed him, like I felt for him. Is like he liked this girl. He didn't
Yeah.
think he'd ever get a girl. She was the cute one in the classroom. He thought, I'm going to ask her to the fair. And then she just, I don't know what she said to him, but
Rejected
something
him.
rejected him and then physically pushed him on the floor.
Mm.
And that is like for a person who's already on the feeling ugly, feeling like a woman doesn't like him, already feeling, and the amount of courage he had to have to go to talk to her. Yeah, he was following her, so you can call him a stalker. And I think it's like people are so easy to judge. It's like,
The only
I
thing is, he
remember.
did have a knife. What was the intention with the knife? Would be my only thought.
Yeah, I mean, his
Yeah,
friend gave it to him, and maybe
yeah,
he wanted to threaten her. And you, as a kid, if he'd actually sat down and talked to his dad, he'd be like, "Yeah, no, this is a bad idea." But as a
yeah,
kid, you can kind of make. I mean, I used to love guns as a
yeah.
child. I loved guns, and I'd make guns. And I used to, when we were homeschooled, I would at Rehoboth, I would go out, hide in the trees, in the bushes, and I would pretend to sniper kids on the way back from school. Because they were, in
Wow.
my head, they were Germans.
Yeah.
And we grew up in England. The bad guys were Germans. In America, it's like cowboys and Indians. Now it's probably
None of that
Arabic.
you can say normally.
If anyone had seen me then, they would have probably been
Yeah.
like, "Oh, and laugh."
Psychopath.
But I would have been in jail now.
Yeah.
If that was nowadays, I
Yeah.
would be like, "This kid is a potential mass murderer. He's going to
Yeah.
be like
Yeah.
the next Columbine,"
Yeah.
and I'd be behind bars. But no, I was just, I was, yeah, I had, I got teased at school a lot. I had all these issues, but it was a toy gun. It wasn't a real gun.
Oh.
So I, I don't, it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I agree that I think the most he would have needed was like anger management. He obviously was feeling um, uh, marginalized and frustrated, and in that moment, I would,
Intensely
if
humiliating.
yeah, and yeah, I don't know how realistic, because I was watching it going, is this actually happening? And the director said, basically there were two knife crimes with 13-year-olds that happened within a few months of each other in England, which is why he started investigating and looking into these stories. So I guess it does happen, but I agree that um, it's hard it's hard to wrap your head around, but it did seem to me like it was just a very unfortunate moment, and that he wasn't a psychopath.
No.
And then of course with prison life, he's more likely to just be an incredibly troubled person
Yeah, I mean,
who doesn't get any better.
exactly. And when he was in jail, because I've done lots and lots of time, I spent lots of time in jails working, I used to help out at jails, maximum security jails, juvenile jails, everything in between. And when I saw that kid in there and he was being talked to by the therapist, I'm like, you're getting a kid that hasn't only killed someone, but now he's been in jail where he's afraid for his life all the time. He has to stand up for himself. It's only men in that jail. And all of the dudes around you are like, well, he was in a psych ward, right? So they're all crazy.
Oh.
And that has to come into like that.
It's only going to get worse for him.
Yeah. And the kid thinks his life is over
Yeah,
because he knows deep down in his soul he murdered someone.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
and his life's over. Like, no wonder he's going to burst out with aggression.
yeah. Well, exactly.
I
it's
mean,
it's an interesting case study because you see it from all angles.
yeah, I mean, I think there's two case studies, right? There's a case study about the real life story, and then there's a case study about what the world is doing with this story.
Mm.
And for me, that's interesting too. Like how the world is twisting this story and making it into what they want, their agenda
Mm.
of let's make this about,
Misogyny, that's exactly what I think is happening. Well, there's also the story about social
social media.
media, and I think what I don't, in real life, I think one of the huge things is the availability of parents. What I see is where you've got two people working full time and life just goes under the radar. Their children's my kids, because I'm a stay-at-home mum, I've been available for decades for them, and that's their norm. But within their friendship group, where you have both parents working full-time, demanding jobs, the amount of stuff that happens and it goes under the radar and the parents are not able to pick up. I'm picking up on stuff all the time with my kids because we spend so much time around each other. It's not quality time, it's quantity time. You know, we're not eyeball to eyeball, but I feel like a key thing which is very uncomfortable to talk about is the availability of parents and their level of distraction with their own lives and work. And that, you know, like, you can live in the same house, and if you're all working and if kids are in sports and it's just, you know, ships passing in the night, you're going to miss these cues and you're not going to be in touch with what's going on in your children's lives. And I think that's where things can fall through the cracks, where
Yeah, I mean,
you're not there to notice,
well,
basically.
he said that at the end. I was like, we bought him a computer and I could see the light under the door, and there's this. It's so tough being a parent these days with social media. I mean, we're dealing with it now. Amelia wanted, our youngest daughter wanted, she has Snapchat, but then she wanted another
TikTok?
one, TikTok, and we're
Oh,
like, no, and it was like bloody third world war in our house.
yeah.
And I mean, I remember when Jasmine, my oldest daughter, was like 13 or 14, and Tara had this niggling feeling at like midnight. She walked into the bedroom and she's like, I need to look at your phone. And this is not even her own daughter.
Hmm.
And, someone on the other side of the world had been talking Jasmine into doing some pretty scary things.
Hmm.
And
And that
Jasmine
was
felt
Tara's intuition.
that was her intuition. If she hadn't followed that through, who
Mm-hmm.
knows where that would have ended. Raven, my son, he got taught by this girl in like Scotland, started talking him into cutting himself.
Wow.
And I had to call her and I said, go talk to your parents or a therapist, but don't call my son anymore. And as soon as I cut that conversation off, Raven totally turned around and just never did it again.
Wow. Isn't that
So
interesting? Like
it's
how easily they're influenced.
so easily influenced. Yeah. It's like, this whole thing of like, it's really hard for a kid when a kid's not popular. It's like, no one else loves you, but I love you. I'm
Mm.
your, and so that becomes your like haven. And so
Mm-hmm.
those are the vulnerable ones. The one, if you're like top of your class and top of your
Yeah.
sports and, you've got so much going on, you don't really
Yeah.
need the flattery of someone, but,
Yeah. If you've
social
got
media,
high negative emotion, you don't feel great about yourself.
yeah,
And it's a perfect storm for being really vulnerable for these situations.
yeah. I mean, loneliness, I notice in myself when I'm lonely and feeling, all of this, like my mind starts to wander into, places
Yeah.
that it shouldn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're wanting a pick me up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I, we're all addicted, so we all know the allure. And then I think that's why with kids, you just know so much about how detrimental this is, because I feel it in my own life, this addiction. Get on Instagram and it's like 2 hours later.
Yeah.
You can
Doom
just get
scrolling.
lost in it. And if we're like that as adults and find it hard to tear ourselves away and not get sucked in, they literally have no self-restraint whatsoever.
Uh-huh.
They've got no reason to go, I'm going to put it down and I'm going to go and do a drawing instead.
No,
just not going to do it.
no, it's like cocaine.
Yeah, completely. So it's
Yeah.
addressing that and that huge challenge that we've never faced before. And I don't know, man. Yeah, I do think that like you say, even you and Tara are available, but you're still dealing with an addiction, basically. We're all addicted to these
We're all
devices.
crackheads in the same
Yeah.
house.
And it doesn't matter whether you've got a great marriage, whether you're available stay-at-home mum. If you're addicted to something, that's going to take center stage.
Yep.
And that's what we're really dealing with. It's like, oh, it's
Well,
no different.
what's kind of ironic and funny is that after that movie, I had to get my mind off it because I was on a plane. So I started watching The Electric
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
and it's exactly the same thing. But it's taking it to the next level. It's like people are putting on these helmets, and half their brain is on holiday, and the other half's working, and it's all about the kind of Neuralink world.
Yeah.
People being completely captured by technology and being zombies, basically. So yeah. But Abby,
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
gonna have to
Wrap
rock
up.
and roll here.
Sweet. Well, good to talk to you, and we'll connect next week.
All right.
All
Love you,
right.
Abs.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.